called Gator Load. Shannon, should Jordan have gotten the same criticism that LeBron got for cramping up in the finals?
It was a different time. It's a different era. Skip, you understand now that there's cameras everywhere, things that guys could get away with back in the 80s and 90s. Guys can't even dream of getting away with that. I've had Gator Load before, and it would, Skip, it would tear your stomach up if you ingest too much of it. Trust me, I know firsthand. I can attest to it. So if Michael Jordan ingested too much of this, cramps. Yeah, I'm surprised he even went back into the ball game without going to the locker room first, Jenny, if you know what I mean. Yes, that stuff will mess your stomach up if you ingest too much of it. But, Skip, it just goes to show you there's a different set of rules. Michael could have. Michael, I believe, at the time he was playing, Skip, could have got away with anything, especially when it came to on the court, and nobody would have batted an eye. And because now, it's because it didn't get reported, anything that a superstar player does now, the first thing they go, Michael would have never come out the game. Michael would have never done that. Michael would have never said that. So everybody gets compared to Michael, not knowing that there were things that went on that Michael actually did that's very similar to things that superstar players are doing now. So I'm not going to criticize the guy. We didn't know about it then. We're only finding out it ex post facto. So let it lie.
I'm not going to let this lie because this is a big LOL for me. I'm sorry. I also tried Gator Load one time, and I agree with you, not to be trifled with, especially if you're going to go running after you tried to ingest it. And I cannot believe that an assistant trainer got it in his head to go Gator Load over Gator Aid. I have no idea. But the point was, we're talking about stomach cramps versus leg cramps. Stomach versus leg. So now let's fast forward to Game 1 of the 2014 finals in San Antonio, when somehow, some way, in the AT&T Center, the air conditioning went out in the second half. There were 18 players who played in that game, and only one cramped, leg cramps. That was your man, LeBron James, who struggled through the fourth quarter, dragging his leg. I'm cramping, get me out. I can't drag my leg up the floor anymore. LeBron, what are you doing? You're up 6 early in the fourth quarter, but without LeBron down the stretch, he scored only 2 points in the fourth quarter. The Heat fell apart and lost by 15. So at that point in time, I knew one of the trainers for the Miami Heat, and he told me the next day that they were having some trouble with LeBron cramping under pressure. He told me it was more psychosomatic than actual physical cramping, that the stress sometimes made LeBron cramp. And if you don't think he did, you can look it up because I wrote it on ESPN.com. So that was completely different than a Gator Load stomach cramp. This is some kind of weird leg crampings. It was an epic fail on LeBron's part. And what happened the rest of the series? They lost by a record finals margin to my Spurs.
If you don't mind me asking, so you can't play with cramps, but you can play with food poisoning. Now, you stay up all night. You can't keep anything down. Jenny, you remember the story, Jenny? Oh, it's mythical proportions. He had the flu game. They named it the flu game. So you can play an entire game with food poisoning, throwing up, but you can't stay in the game because of Gator Load? Now I'm confused. But if you look at that photo, LeBron is the only one that have on leggings. He had the tights on. And I think that caused it, Skip, because I've seen I don't know if you remember this fight, but I remember a fight in which Klitschko, the trainer, put too much Vaseline on it. But instead of just putting it on his face, he put it over his whole body. Well, your body can't perspire. So it locked it in. He overheated, got knocked out. So you live and you learn. If you notice, the next game, LeBron James didn't have those leggings on. Skip, yeah, you could, if you want to beat him up, if you want to find something to nitpick about LeBron, have at it. But I do believe LeBron James cramped.
Well,
I don't believe, look, I had an issue with cramping. I've always had an issue with cramping. I was always lean. And I didn't like a whole lot of stuff on my stomach. And Greek, my athletic trainer, Steve Antonopoulos, and even when I went to Baltimore, Bill Tessendorf would always try to get me to drink. But, Skip, I couldn't drink because I didn't like stuff sloshing around in my stomach. So I drank the bare minimum. In practice, it could be 100 degrees. I wore a long sleeve. I sipped maybe a half a cup of water for 2.5 hours at practice because I didn't want anything on my stomach. And I had a problem with cramping. I still do. But, Skip, I'm not finna nitpick the guy. The guy locked up. It happened. It's not the first time that cramps have happened.
Shannon, with the Bulls, a number of Bulls had stomach cramps and had to go to the bench for a little while before they went back in the game, as did Jordan.
But that's not
in this
Michael.
case,
That's
to
not
my
Michael.
point, okay, but in this case, 18 other players are going in and out of the game in the second half, and apparently they all drank while they were sitting on the bench because the air conditioning broke and it's summertime in San Antonio. It's going to be 100 degrees every day. You better drink or you're going to cramp because you're going to completely dehydrate and bad things are going to happen. So why LeBron was the one guy who didn't drink some kind of liquid, I don't know. But he was the only one in the whole game who cramped. It was a bad look, and it set a bad tone for a Heat team who collapsed against the Spurs, and that was, of course, the end of LeBron in Miami as he took his talents back to Cleveland.
Well, I think the thing is, Skip, like I said, he had the leggings on, and when you have on leggings, Skip, you have to be really careful working out and with extra layer. You know, they say wear extra layer, but Skip, it needs to be cotton. That fabric needs to be able to breathe. And LeBron, you're asking LeBron, Skip, you remember in '84, well, I think that was Game 7 when the Heat went out, the air went out in the Boston Garden, and they said it was like it was 97 degrees. But you have to understand, Skip, LeBron James is 265 pounds, and he's running up and down the field. Skip, that's why you see more times than not, you see receivers, running back, DBs cramp as opposed to offensive linemen. Skip, when you're exerting more, yeah, it's hot. It's 100 degrees for the offensive line. But when you're running like a receiver or a DB or running back, quarterbacks never cramp because they don't cramp because they're not exerting the same as other players. If you believe those players, everybody out there is exerting the same, no, it's not the case. And you know that's not the case.
Well, guys, speaking of that flu game, which I know I've been very intrigued about forever, we got new information last night about exactly what was happening.
What?
Skip was there, and I want to hear the details and the latest next on Undisputed.